Welcome back, viewers, to the Dragster Shop and Transmission. Today I'm doing a second video on the Dragster front axle update. A few other little things I'm changing on the chassis. There was a few things after when I initially built this chassis, there's a few things I needed to go back and change, and well, 5 years later, I'm finally doing it. You know, sometimes when you do something and if it's working, you leave it alone. That's why it's taken me so long to get to making these changes. It's not going to be a terribly long video, but just wanted to do a follow-up. So you see I've got the radiator on there and my fuel tank. And before, the way I had this car set up was just like you see it. And then I had mounted the battery up here. There's a good chance I'll probably go back to that. But since I bought one of those little lightweight batteries, a Braille battery, I'm actually considering relocating it somewhere else on the chassis to either hide it or whatever. And but you know, I'm not going to put a lot in it because I've got a lot of time in this. I'm redoing the uprights on the chassis and the angle bars, angle tubes, and just changing a few things there, tweaking the chassis a little bit. The chassis was a little too stiff, and so the car wasn't exactly reacting throughout, like from the launch off the starting line, then throughout the course of the run, the car just seemed to be the chassis was just a little too stiff. It worked. It went down the track. It was predictable, a little wild, but that's the way I like it. So that's really about it, really. Just been trying to get at it when I got the time. And of course, stuff like this takes time because, you know, I designed this stuff in my head. I sketch it out on paper because I know what works on these cars. This particular chassis is 140-inch wheelbase. And I've got 15 degrees of caster camber, and an 1/8 inch of toe. I don't know if any of you that's been watching these Dragster videos of mine are considering building one of these chassis, but there is a lot to consider. So I strongly recommend, if you're going to build one of these cars, that you don't throw a lot of power on it until you have a chance to you'll have a lot of fun with a stock engine with a small cam and a 650 Holley carburetor on it. You'll have a lot of fun with that. However, in other words, I'd recommend starting off safe and then build yourself some more power. But anyway, back to this. You know, a lot of time and figuring stuff out goes into this. You just can't start hacking tubing out, but it does take a long time because you are, in fact, taking out tubing. In my case, things I didn't like, things that I needed to do differently. Well, I feel like I need to do it differently, and I know it'll work, but so you got to design it like I do it in my head, and then I put it on paper, and then I figure it out because now I'm looking at it on paper. Now, for some of you that are hands-on, that's understandable. I'm the same way, but how these chassis react is everything. So anyway, you know, it's a learning process every day. If you stop learning, you should stop doing it because you're not doing anything. So anyway, so in this case, you know, I built this chassis, I think it was around about 6 years ago. So naturally I'm going back. I had uprights 1.5 uprights like those right here. And that was one thing I wanted to change, so I actually came up front here and I had uprights right here. So I had one here and one here on both sides of the chassis. So the chassis was still flexing like it's supposed to, but it could do better. So I put an upright here, and then in this case it just split the difference between that upright and this upright, and that gives you this one. And then you put your angle tube in. Everything's just tacked up right now. And so I decided to take a little time to get the radiator on there and the fuel tank, and we're going to see how I decide to do this. I'm not crazy about this fuel tank. When I made it, I wasn't crazy about it, but it works. It's a little on the heavy side because it is made out of steel, flat stock steel, whatever, sheet. So just setting this stuff on there now to determine which way I go. I did think about building a body for the chassis to make it a full-bodied car. That's not out of the plans, but that's on down the road. So once I do that, obviously I'll be making a shorter but longer fuel tank. This tank holds, I think it's 2.4 gallons. And like I said, the small blown engine, if you look at my other videos, you'll see that was just a 93 pump gas engine. So, you know, it's just what I'm doing with the car. I don't want to have to go to the track and work on the car for an hour before I go to race. I want to pump the gas one time and it start right up, and then I go race. You know, I work on cars every day, and so when I have the opportunity to go play with my own car, I want it to be a very simple operation. So, in the past, I've had these cars that I bought, old cars, travel around the country, buy these cars old, and update them, you know, put tubing in where it needed to be for safety rules and stuff, and you know, and then I would play with them for a little while. That playing with them meaning that I would take them to the track and run them, and then, you know, I'd get tired of them, and then 6 months or a year or 2 years later, I would sell the car, you know, to somebody else, and that's that. So that's really it as far as an update goes. If you watch the first front axle for the Dragster video, you'll see where I was at that point. So here we are. Okay, guys, well, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, share it, hey, and subscribe to the channel. All right, thank you.